building a Kickass 2026. So we're going to be looking at the strategy for fat loss, building your muscle, energy, and happiness. So what we're going to cover and what you'll get by the end of the workshop. So reflection. So I love this time of year in December. Things do, well, they both really speed up, but they also, there's kind of feels to me like some aspects of it slow down. You have a bit more time to reflect. So we're going to use this workshop to reflect and be clear, really clear on what patterns and habits and mindsets you need to really let go of. Identify what has and hasn't worked for you so far this year. You'll have built a realistic for you, personalized year-long health and fitness strategy. Be clear for some of you, those who want to, clear on how to lose body fat sustainably, where you've been going wrong so far, how to manage your menopausal symptoms, and learn with clarity and a sense of calm and confidence a strategic plan that you can follow in 2026. So, as I say, nothing works without reflection. And I know this life stage in particular, we are so busy firefighting that the chance and time to reflect is very short and sometimes doesn't happen. But you cannot hope to progress or move forward without reflection. So, I come across this all the time on chats to women who I talk to about potentially coming into coaching, particularly around January, actually. They'll say, and maybe this resonates with some of you, you think you know what to do and you just need to do it. You get motivated in January or various other times of the year. There might be like June time or May time, just before summer. You go all in, and then by week 2, 4, maybe some of you make it to week 6, you suddenly feel things start to slack off again, and then suddenly you feel like you're back to square one, and then the rest of the year just goes by in a flash and you're stuck in those same patterns. So real behavior change only really comes from a real honesty with yourself, reflection, and then using that to actually implement progress, implement a plan and a structure. Because if you are relying on feeling, relying on when I feel like, or when something's clear, I will do something, it will never happen. You need to, like you would in the workplace, you rely on a framework, on a strategy and your processes. And if you get that clear, even though you might slip off it now and again, but you keep going back to it, that is what will create sustainable results right the way through 2026 and beyond. So let's have a quick write down now. I want you to just at the moment start off thinking about what have you done in 2025. It doesn't need to be necessarily a diet. It could be anything for you that you've come to this call thinking about in particular that you've wish you felt or had done and that you tried to do and which didn't work. So be really specific about it. If you tried to have a career change, what actually did you do to try and have that career change? Who did you speak to? What kind of methodology did you follow? And then what happened? Why didn't it work? Write it down. And then I want you to write what you did that was successful. What wins did you get? What were the results? And and how did you go about that? So we're not looking about, I know women have a real thing about the word failure, but if you think about failing as actually being a good thing, because it means you've tried. If there are no failures, that's more worrying because it means you've just stagnated. So I'm just going to give you a couple more minutes. You don't have to share those, just have them to hand. So let me just give you a couple minutes. Okay, so make sure keep that in mind when we get onto the next bits. So the Kick-Ass Midlife method in particular, we really use a strategy because if you, as I'm sure you're all aware, if you reduce decision fatigue when you're really knackered, there's so much going on, you've got hormone change hitting you from every direction. This life chapter in particular with either aging parents, hormone change, juggling career changes, maybe senior roles, kids either going to university or them having a bit of a life change, depending where you are on the hormonal spectrum. Some of you might be slightly younger, but basically if you just rely on just thinking that things will happen when you think about them or when you feel it, it's not going to happen. If you rely on motivation, motivation is there for very, very short spaces of time in your life. Like you might have the sun might shine one day and you feel really motivated. And if you're relying on the sun shining every day in England for a tiny bit of motivation, it's not going to happen. So it's really about making sure that you build a structure and a strategy that covers all of this stuff and is specific to you and your kind of the reality of your life so that it's flexible enough for real life. So I don't know whether any of you have heard of this. We're going to kind of apply it really to um, fitness and exercise terms and nutrition, but this Japanese concept of ikigai, which is your reason for being. So when four very real things overlap, what you love, you do it for free, what you're good at, your actual skills, what the world needs, what you're useful, but where you're useful, and what you can be paid for, when they all come together in this kind of perfect moment, that's when you feel really energized because your why is really clear. You feel your values, you're sticking really to your values. So consistency is just easy because you're just living the life that makes you feel really happy. And therefore you don't have to force anything. Now, what tends to happen in midlife when you tend to feel stuck or those things are not kind of sitting right, it means that one of those things is not quite right. So potentially doing what pays, you're doing something that pays you, but actually you no longer want to do it. So that's draining you. So something like that particularly happens at this time of life. You love something, you love doing something, but you're not prioritizing it because you in yourself have stop prioritizing or realizing you're important in amongst, maybe you've been a mother for so long or being a senior manager and that becomes all encompassing, or feeling like you're giving everything and getting nothing back. So what I want you to do now is I want you to complete one of these sentences. And we're going to relate this back to health, fitness, your happiness goals, body fat loss, strength, optimizing for longevity, because a lot of you have come for this call about those things. So I want you to choose one of these. If I was leaner, I'd be able to feel or do dot dot dot. More energy would allow me to say yes to dot dot dot. In 12 months, a stronger body will allow me to. And I also want you to do that last one. If you decide to do that last one, I want you to also say, in a decade, a stronger body will allow me to as well. So just a bit of a longer, because we're all at that age, I think, where we're very aware nowadays that time is running out and the body we build now is the body that will allow us to do and live a certain way later on. And I want you to write that down. And I also want, once you're done, write it in the chat. There's something about writing it down and then writing it and sharing it. That is a little bit different. Because once you start digging down, I have these conversations at least 2 or 3 times a week with women that I chat to. And when they will say, oh, I want to lose X amount of weight or I want to lose this amount of body fat, once you dig a little bit deeper about how that will change things, then it reveals something completely different. And so for you yourself to be aware of how do you think things will change if you got this makes the journey and the process much more compelling. Yeah, and if there's anything you can be like a bit more specific for Sheena and Kirsty about doing the things I want to do in to retirement, be really specific. What is it? What is it you want to do in retirement specifically? So yeah, Claire M, 12, age well, allow me to keep going on active holidays and seeing the world. I was just thinking of that myself actually just before this meeting, that for me, I have traveled a lot. And the older I get, like I was in Japan last beginning of this year, and I was going up and down tiny steps in temples and often on trains. And I remember going into India and climbing up little staircases to sleep on the top bunk of a train. And those things are really important to me to still be able to do when I get on a camel in the Jaisalmer desert in another 10, 15 years' time. Again, Lorraine, active semi-retirement. Is there anything? What does active mean? Be really specific. The more you can picture what that means, the more it's easier in many ways to stay really consistent to your health and fitness so that you kind of can pin that somewhere and you can see it and feel it. Hiking with my partner, cycling long routes with my pals. Yeah, yeah, the clingy stuff. Yeah, not going to bed for 9 p.m. Oh, I hear you, Sheena. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The more specific you can be, then the more it kind of means something. The more it can make you think when because you have to accept that if you decide to exercise in the gym or you decide to exercise at home, you've got to keep it up forever because otherwise you just lose all your gains and you lose all your muscles. And therefore, keeping it up forever, you have to recognize that you will not want to do it a lot of the time. You will do it when you get there and you'll enjoy it when you get there, when you'll enjoy it when you finish. But that impetus to get there, you need these kind of things really clear in your head and keep reflecting on them and thinking, where I am now. So now we're going to kind of leave that, park that for a minute, and we're going to go into like the nitty gritty for some people of the fueling, the exercise, what that should look like at this age to actually be sustainable and get you results, and the mindset before we go on to the big strategy piece at the end. So, how to fuel in midlife. So these are the diet myths. So I want you to put in 1 to 8, which of these you think you are the most guilty of still following. Carbs after 6 p.m. make me fat. Protein builds my muscles. This one, I think some of you might be like, oh, I thought that was okay. Low fat equals healthy. I'm going out to dinner later, and this is a big one at the moment because of the festive period. So I'm just not going to eat the for the day. I'll have my breakfast and then I won't eat anything the rest of the day. I'll wait till dinner. I'll burn off this food with exercise. Another one that's going to be massive in January. If I eat too much at breakfast, I'll gain weight. If I'm not that hungry, I'll follow the Bridget Jones diet, cracker and hummus. I see that all the time still. Bit of olives on the side, maybe a little bit of cheese. And I don't eat carbohydrates, so I avoid carbohydrates. So 1 to 8, let's see if be honest, guilty 7 or 8. Yeah, so it looks like all of you definitely still fall into these ideas around these diet myths, and they are all incorrect. So why not, these don't work at all for midlife fat loss? And really, you were just lucky if you were doing those and you got away with it when you were younger, because actually they're not great for younger either, but you just got away with it. So eating as little as possible or missing meals, that kind of thing that you do, or getting to that stage where you kind of think, I'm actually don't feel hungry, so I'm not going to eat much because, hey, that's great. I'm going to lose some weight. Or that thing you do sometimes when you're like, I'm ill, but, feel awful. But, the good news is I lost loads of weight when I was ill. You just do not want to have that idea at all. It slows your metabolism down if you're eating little because what you're doing is losing muscle. So, last thing you want to do, we are already losing an incredible amount of muscle year on year. Particularly, it speeds up post-menopause. So once you're past menopause, speeds up even more if you're not replacing it. So if you're then also supporting that by not eating enough and you're decreasing your muscle mass, increases your hunger hormones, and there is no way in hell you can stay consistent on a nourishing mindset if you're just picking. You just can't do it because you're hungry. So therefore, your ability to make rational choices is just gone. You might think you're making rational choices about your food, but you're not. It's being driven by actually being quite hungry. So skipping meals to save calories doesn't work. And likewise, so talking about the protein one, focusing on one macro. So, you should never focus on one macro. Never think about, other than I think there's one person here that has more of a high protein diet because of uh, um, intolerances and health conditions. So other than that, you really don't want to focus and cut out any macros. So protein in particular, the reason I put that in is because of all this noise around midlife women at the moment, is that everyone's going on and on about protein. So I think in some women's minds, there is this sudden belief that protein has this magic switch that clicks your metabolism on, or suddenly this magic switch that makes you grow muscle. Protein won't grow muscle, won't do anything without you doing strength exercise. So, be really careful that you don't fall into this trap of thinking protein is this power thing that suddenly has this magic switch in your body. It doesn't. Random carb cutting, again, it really affects your mood, sleep, and training performance. So if you're, I'm talking about training performance. Say if some of you, lots of you wrote on your why you want to be stronger when you're older about running and stuff like that. Actually, if you are not eating correctly enough carbohydrate, it affects your ability to do all of that. It affects your ability to live stronger. A lot of women who come onto my program and initially are saying, I've got brain fog, really bad brain fog. It can often come straight back down to actually not eating. It's not to do with hormones. There's just not enough carbohydrate. And it can affect your sleeping. So if you are currently someone that suffers from terrible sleep, it may also be because you're not eating sufficiently, and therefore that is kind of keeping you up. And then intermittent fasting, biggest popular diet I find amongst midlife women who try this. Nobody ever sticks to it because it's totally unsustainable. And all it does, again, is drives a kind of slightly, I think, disordered eating pattern around intermittent fasting because it requires you to be very controlled about when you're eating. People tend not to do it correctly anyway. So you don't eat anything and then you just like stuff your face with stuff that, again, is not quite the right stuff. So, what do you do instead? So, the Kickass midlife method, we're relying on all three macros. So, macronutrients are the things that go into your diet, and they should largely be your protein, so low lean source of protein, like your dairy, legumes, meats, and fish. You're looking for 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. Now, your range of that will depend on the level of exercise you do. So, lower end of the scale, you're looking at 1.6, higher end of the scale, you're looking more at 2 point something, 2.2 grams. So that will change per day. Your carbohydrate, you really need carbohydrate. So if you're doing more training performance stuff, you need a little bit more carbohydrate. But you're looking in midlife, particularly, and this is really important for low glycemic index carbohydrates. So glycemic index is a scientific method that's been come up to kind of rate how quickly sugar's released from certain carbohydrates. So what we want to avoid in midlife is fast release carbohydrates, unless you're training for something specific like running, triathlon, something like that, where you need those fast energy release. But otherwise, if you constantly have fast energy release, then that encourages body fat storage around the belly because we're not, due to hormone change, as adept at processing that fast release carbohydrates. And then you need fats. So all this rubbish that we brought up on about having low fat stuff is not right. We need healthy fats, such as in olive oil, olives, seeds, nuts, oily fish, that kind of thing. So we really need that as well. So no macronutrient, although everyone keeps going on and on about protein. The reason everyone goes on about protein is that women are really not very good at eating protein. So actually most women are under eating their protein by quite a lot. So it's not that you need to be thinking about, I need more protein than anything else. You just actually need to eat sufficient protein and you're probably under eating it at the moment. So if any of you on here who are not a current client, if you want a personalized nutritional strategy and you want to know also how many calories you should be eating for your body weight and for your aims, then use that QR code and you can book a 15-minute chat with me and I'll sort that out for you. So if you do that, because that's the other thing, if your aim is a body fat loss, you need to be eating sufficiently for that goal. So you actually, all this rubbish about scales don't matter, you don't need scales. You absolutely need scales because otherwise you have no idea how much you weigh, and therefore you have no idea how many calories you need to eat. So you absolutely need to know your weight, but not from a fear point of view, but from an empowered women's point of view to actually steer your strategy. Likewise, if you want to build muscle, you need to know your weight because you actually need to increase the number of calories you're eating to generate muscle. Same with your performance. So all of that actually matters. So, so energy and food. It's your bodies. Again, we're always thinking about food, or women of our generation tend to always think about food still as what can I cut to lose body fat? You know, actually, what you want to be thinking about is what can I substitute to give me better energy, and that will stabilize my energy and food. So I want you to be honest. What did you have for breakfast or lunch today? Put it in the chat. Along with, can you think how long was it after your meal did you start feeling hungry, tired, or bored or irritable? Because we often take those signs, and it can be boredom, but 9 times out of 10, that boredom or irritability or tiredness is actually more to do with the fact that you've not eaten enough food, not that even if, in midlife, I know we all suffer from, not everyone, but lots of us suffer from insomnia or wake up in the middle of the night. But it's still really often the tiredness is coming from insufficient fueling. So again, just share that in the chat. What did you have for breakfast or lunch? Yeah, and just add also how long afterwards before you started feeling hungry, bored, or tired. How long after that did you feel hungry? So you can see that most people who put, interesting, everyone's got oats. Most people who put porridge said 3 hours. Toast, 30 minutes to an hour and a half later, you're starting to feel hungry. So whilst I know it can be 2 hours, 2 hours, this might be for you, Joanne, if you just had the protein and no carbohydrate. So again, you've got protein in that only. So you've got like one macro. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if it's boring. Sometimes being consistent. Yeah, so you can see from that, like often it's really easy to start thinking, well, if I have a smaller amount because it's quick and easy and actually it's not that many calories, that's okay. But actually, what it means is you're hungry instantly afterwards and 30 minutes to an hour with a toast, and then you're going to want something else. So when you're going through your day, it's really start trying to think not about like, am I decreasing, meaning that I'm going to lose body fat, but what kind of energy, what's my energy feeling like? Do I feel tired, more energized? Because in midlife, hormone change is not preventing fat loss. It is still, and nor does it mean that you naturally put it on. It's still the lifestyle and nutritional choices that you are making that is causing you to put on body fat or preventing body fat loss. It's not your hormones. So under eating is backfiring. It's lowering your metabolic rate. Things like the food quality affects your mood, sleep, and consistency. So as I was saying, high glycemic index foods, processed foods, they are all going to derail your progress. And then the other things around recovery as well, which we're going to get into when we talk about the exercise a little bit, should be in your calendar, much as you say, I'm going to the gym, your recovery matters just the same. So if anything around your nutrition, you should be thinking about, you absolutely need to know your weight for your so that you can actually be strategic about your goals and know how many calories you want to be eating. And you need to be trying to reframe your narrative around food. You're not chasing fat loss at any cost. You're chasing fat loss that lasts, that's sustainable, and you're wanting energy and a stable mood. So trying to think from a restriction to an abundance mindset. What will give me abundant energy, will feed my bones, brain, and body, not what will help me to cut and diminish myself. So getting on to the fitness and strength, just so we have time for the strategic bit at the end. So again, I want you to put in the chat, um, uh, do you train hard to lose weight or burn off excess calories? I think some of you put that at the beginning. Are you training for how you look or what your body can do? So for you, do you find yourself still waking up on a Monday? Maybe you've had a kind of excessive weekend or excessive for you and think, oof, right, I'm going to go out and like run some intervals, or I'm going to go out and I'm going to book a spin session. I'm going to sweat it all out. Is that something, yes or no, in the chat that you still slightly suffer from that mindset about thinking of exercise? Not just as purely, I'm sure lots of you enjoy it as well, but that mindset around, oh, well, I've just kind of, yeah, not done well. I'll just burn it off. That's good that some of you are definitely no. That's good. Lots of you saying no. So that's good. So something's getting through around exercise, because obviously training and exercising really should be about your mindset, your mood, your body confidence, building muscle for your longevity. So your muscles are as important as your heart and lungs for your long-term health as well. It's not just your muscle, how well you'll move as you get older. It really is about your metabolic health. So it has an impact on whether you'll get diabetes, all of those things. So it's really important. So in Kickass, so some of this will be new to some of my clients as well. There are kind of three pillars, three, four pillars. So strength training, so absolutely essential. You're aiming for, if you're thinking about your strategy, those people who are coming here are not as my clients, you're looking really for strength training 3 times a week. If you don't do 3 times a week, the ability to maintain consistency is very difficult. Now, you don't have to go to the gym, you can do it at home, and you don't need to say, I'm going to do it for like 45 minutes or an hour. Literally, I would always say, particularly if you're coming to it new and thinking, I've got no time, I haven't got time to do it, and then that overwhelms you, just think 10 minutes, 3 times a week. Then from that, you can start building, because you need to get to that stage where your perspective opens and you realize, actually, I'm enjoying this, I feel better for it. And therefore, that allows you to prioritize and start creating boundaries around it and give yourself longer. Whereas at the beginning, sometimes when you can't quite see the benefits or feel the benefits, you can be like, oh, it's just too, I haven't got enough time. So you don't do it at all. So it's better that you start with 10 minutes. So strength training 3 times a week. And strength training, it's really important to remember that strength training covers mobility. So everybody thinks, oh, if I've got bad posture, I've got a tight muscle, it's all about yoga. It's not, because if you think about so say we all have this hunch, I'm over exaggerating, hunched back because we're on the laptops all the time. What's happening is we've got tight chest muscle here and weak back muscles here. So obviously, as you strengthen your back muscles, you're improving your mobility because you're stretching and opening up your chest muscles. So tight chest muscles are weak muscles. So you want to open up through that. So strength training is also about mobility. Then your second pillar is your VO2 max. So this is increasingly, all the research shows that it's a measure of how efficiently your body uses oxygen during exercise, by the way, and it's a really strong predictor of longevity. So this we start in the Kickass Midlife method, start building in once your strength training and your foundations are solid, because otherwise it can all just seem a little bit too much. So your VO2 max, for the time frame that we have, we don't want to be training like 7 days a week and taking ages. It's about short bursts. So we're talking about sprint training, sit training, which some of you, my clients, are already doing. So sprint interval training. You cannot do sprint interval training until your body is strong enough through strength. So you've got to layer it. You don't just do all of it all at once, and which is what is tending to happen on Instagram at the moment. You're feeding, you seeing the one thing and thinking, I've got to do all of it. It's about creating a structure and phasing it. So you're looking at 6-week phases with your strength training. Every 6 weeks, you change it slightly, but you want to be progressively overloading. So building your weights as you go through. Then you want to be layering in VO2 max. And then you want to be layering in after that, which I call, we go body confidence for life training, and then we go into adventurous aging. So your adventurous aging bit, bizarrely, is actually getting back to your movements as a child. So that we did without thinking about it, and that will help you to age adventurously. So you're talking about those things you just wouldn't have thought about, like the ability to climb, to jump off things, to crawl, to move sideways, those kind of things, put in an adult framework, but it's really that movement patterns as a child that we want to that will help us to age adventurously. And again, weirdly, they are the hardest things. So we've like lost that ability, and that's where we want to get back to. So those are the kind of pillars. But for you coming in, listening to this for the first time, just start 3 strength training a week, structure it, make sure you are progressively overloading and building the amount that you lift each week if you can. So midlife women, often you're always thinking about, more is better. Oh, well, sometimes I'll get people say, oh, well, I still haven't lost, more weight. Shall I do another exercise session? And that's when I know that, people are still connecting fitness, doing more with body fat loss. It's about training smarter, being more strategic. It's not about the all or nothing thinking. So all or nothing means that what happens is that the minute I don't know, the minute something happens at work or your parent falls over or your relationship falls down, then everything stops, and then you're back to square one again. It's about doing all of this through the messiness of midlife. Because if you stop now, stopping for 6 months in your midlife equates to probably stopping like 18 months when you're younger, because we go backwards much, much quicker. And it's what you can do and stay consistent no matter what's going on in your life, which is really, really important. Right, and then the key to unlocking everything. So I'm going to speed through these little bits a little bit quicker because we want to get to that strategy bit, is your mindset. So it is the key to everything. Getting out of that all or nothing mindset is so, so important. Most midlife women that come to Kickass are really driven women. They've done really well at work, in their careers, because they've been driven and because they've been able to juggle everything, do everything, go all in. And actually, what's really important to remember is that with your health and fitness, it's about consistency. It's not about having this perfect window and you're only going to do something when you have this perfect window. It's about doing it anyway, so that you don't have to start again. So as I equate it to, it's like a snakes and ladders board. So if you go into getting healthier, improving your longevity, building your strength, go into it thinking, this is my snakes and ladders. I know it's going to be a snake and ladder, and you realize that you absolutely are going to hit the snake. But when you hit the snake and you descend down, you don't go back to square one. And it's just about picking yourself up, reflecting on why you hit the snake, what was it that made you do that, and then progressing from that so you are more equipped to avoid it the next time. So I call it my kind of thrive in survival mode. So you literally, sometimes with some clients, I say, absolutely write down a list that you pull out when you know something awful is going to happen, right down to what you're going to eat. What of your like kind of packets you've got at home that are quite nourishing that you can just pull out so that you don't actually throw everything up in the air and go, oh, actually, this is hell. I'm just going to give it all up till like a month's time, because the most important thing is the consistency in your mindset, because that will make it so much easier. So, yeah, bodies change when behaviors stick. So, the most important thing is don't rely on discipline. Don't think I've lost my willpower. It's not about willpower anyway. It is about actually following the steps, putting them in place, and that starts energizing you. So 2026, we're going to run over a little bit late. So you want to get your pads out now. So 2026, next year, is going to happen. It's almost upon us. It's going to happen with or without a plan. If you have a plan, you are going to be much more likely to do the things you want to do and actually commit to it and stick to it. So you want to write down on your bit of pad, or actually once you've got your calendar. So you want your calendar to, oh, that's not, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see, that didn't come up. I don't know whether you can see that. I've literally written, it's a very messy pad, but I do this almost every year. I just work better that way, where I've got literally 52 weeks on an A4 piece of paper. I've divided it in 7 days, and then block off I block off weekends. And so, what I want you to do in that calendar, I want you to start writing down. So, let's give you, I don't know, 5 minutes. Maybe Claire, you've already got one written. If you did one last year, maybe you've got your perfect guide already. So, 5 minutes and start sketching in already those bits like your school holidays maybe your seasons that you know every year are the same every year that you know are hell. Maybe there's a maybe you've been in the same job for a while, so you know certain points of your year are hell because of busy periods. And then once you've done that, I want you to write down the things that you would, it could be a work thing. So for instance, I've got a very big 171-kilometer alpine mountain race this year in September. So I've put that in. And then for me, this is a big thing, I'll be building out my weekends all the way from March all the way to September to cover that. Whilst also for me, again, I'm just, you'll have your own things. But for instance, for me, looking back on what I wrote at the beginning of this session was, and do carry on doing your own stuff as I'm babbling on, it's just to kind of give you ideas. So at the beginning of the session, I wrote that the win I had was I invested in my business, and I had a one-to-one business coach. Made a massive difference. That was a massive win. I also stopped being such a scaredy cat and joined a very, very fast running group. And that transformed my enjoyment of my running and helped me get back to my marathon shape. What I didn't do was I thought about seeing my parents more because I needed to as they're older, but I didn't actually do that. So for me, that's also what I'm putting into my yearly calendar now. So that it's actually set in stone and that I actually commit and do that and don't run away from it. So those are the things that will true to my values, true to how I want to feel energized, give back, and for me, but it won't happen unless it's in this calendar because it's too easy if it's not in the calendar for life to go on and suddenly you said yes to something else. And every time you say yes to something else, you're saying no to what really matters to you. And I think what can be really useful in seeing in this one page format. So I used to do this a lot with my triathlon and running performance clients when they were putting in their races for the year, is you start seeing very clearly how close weekends and months are. And actually, you might be thinking, oh, I really want to do this. But as driven women who like to achieve lots and like to tick off boxes, sometimes you can over egg it. And so as you're doing it, you start looking at the spaces in your weekends and spaces in your calendar because you want some of that space. You need that space as recovery, as reset, as breathing space. And if you just constantly pack it, then it will fall down because you'll burn out. So I would say for this demographic here on this call as well, I think that's another really important thing to remember is that we can plan all this lovely year and think, oh, that looks perfect. But if you suddenly look and think, oh, there's no space there at all, you really need the space. You need to be thinking of that space is as important as all the other things because that's your recovery, that's your time for reflection, that's your time for it's in the doing nothing sometimes that things arise. So obviously planning out your whole year will probably take you all a bit of time, but I hope that kind of just gives you an idea that it's really important to like sit down and do that, devote some time to it, because even though you might be thinking, oh, I've got time right now to do it. Honestly, if you just commit an hour or two to doing that, you have the plan for the year. Make sure you don't lose it. Don't make sure you don't do it and then lose a bit and think, oh, I can't actually remember what the hell I said I wanted to do or what's important because we can think we know what's important. We write it down and then in the rush, we actually forget what's important, what we said we wanted to do. And then another year's passed and where, I don't know whether you saw the thing I posted from Jamie Lee Curtis, who I love, who's just going, TikTok, TikTok, TikTok baby, I've got to get on. Life's running out. So um, taking the time to plan your year before January will give you this real sense of calm. And then it enables you to make your decisions based on that, like before, just as the year starts rolling, before suddenly saying yes to something, look back at your calendar and say, is that true to what I said I was going to do? Or is it not? If it's not, you have to be strict and say, I don't want to do that. I'm going to say no to it.